All right, I think we should get things started. So, thank you everyone for joining us today. For those that I haven't met before, my name is Nick. I'm one of the co-founders of Edify Academy. We're an AI skills training company. So, we run lots of programs with different clients, many different industries, helping people kind of turn fear around AI into kind of curiosity and start to leverage it to drive some pretty impressive results for their organizations. One of the programs we run, which is very popular, is our AI for HR, which looks at how you can use generative AI for a variety of different HR related tasks. And today we're going to specifically look at using AI for recruitment purposes. So it is a busy session. So if you want to ask any questions or anything like that, please use the Q&A feature in Zoom and we'll pick those up towards the end of the session. But would love to hear your kind of thoughts as we're going along as well. We asked you this question to start, like what can AI do in recruitment? So some of the things that maybe you're playing around with already. Some of the answers we got there, of course, generating interview questions, finding insights, so maybe some candidate screening there, transcribing interviews, and then looking through those interviews. There are tools like Fireflies and Lena AI, HireView, etc., that are fantastic for that. General kind of automation. Um, One of the things I just want to preface today with, and one of the things we say a lot at Edify, is this. There is a lot of fear around AI at the moment. The world of recruitment is no different. This kind of fear that if it's going to come and take my job. But the truth is that AI is not the silver bullet. It's not some magical thing that's going to come and render humankind useless. Um, your job might not get taken by AI, but we can almost certainly say that someone who can use AI will probably take your job. So with that kind of in mind, it's my pleasure to introduce a very special guest speaker today. His name is Lee Nallalingham. It's quite a mouthful, your surname, Lee. Give us a quick hello and yeah, tell us who you are.
Cool. Thanks, Nick. Good to be here. Hello, everyone. I am Lee Nallalingham, as Nick so well articulated there. Good job on the pronunciation. Look, I am a five-time international best-selling author. I've worked across 70 plus countries in six different continents, delivering HR solutions across the board. I've implemented AI in HR, in recruitment, for some of the organizations you can see here, many others as well, over 100 different multinationals across the geographies that I mentioned. And we've won some awards for them. And I think as we're kind of going through today, what I'd like you to take away from today is that a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about isn't just theoretical. There's a lot of talk around AI at the moment, a lot of hype. But what I'm actually sharing, I've done myself. And you can have the confidence that this is something you can really go away and apply as well. So, how is AI changing HR? So, if I were to start just at a very high level, AI is a very broad term. It encompasses a whole host of different things. So, any of you who've played around with ChatGPT or anything like that may already have an understanding of what it can do. It can do really simple things like just create some questions or jokes or do some brainstorming. If you got a little bit more advanced, you can use tools like ChatGPT to summarize information. So you could attach, for example, a document and ask it to summarize everything within that, or to poke holes in it, or make suggestions. It can also help with your to-do lists. And then you've got the higher end of it, which is um, on the creative side, being able to create content. And on the analytical side, being able to do things like really understanding, for example, engagement survey results, and what that may mean, what the patterns are, make recommendations off of the back of that. So if we go to the next slide, I'm going to skip over the recruitment and talent piece here for a second, because we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Um, but what AI can really do is take the HR team to the next level. So there's a lot of talk within HR as a whole, whether that's in recruitment, whether that's in engagement, whether that's in reward, or just the HR BPs talking. around how does HR become a value creator? And AI can really be the unlock for that. For example, one of the previous organizations that I worked in, we trained our AI on all of our company policies. So what that enabled was to take a lot of the administrative work away from the HR team, and have chatbots essentially run that interface between employees, able to answer questions on things like what is the employee benefits policies or leave policies, help design wellness programs, recognition, and then really getting into kind of customized development plans as well. So you would have people's performance got results, set of their goals, the kind of summary and the reviews and so on. And then you can use AI to actually then create those customized plans, and really kind of accelerate the learning path. And it helped us reduce attrition and increase engagement, and actually higher percentages of people getting promoted, because they were really plugged into their learning and development as well. So if we go to the next slide, as I say, this isn't just theoretical. This is stuff that's being done. And as we go into a nice segue to actually using AI in recruitment, we thought we'd share a little case study around Unilever. So Unilever, big global FMCG company, I'm assuming everyone knows who they are. And what they've done, and this isn't new, by the way, this is something they've been using for almost a decade now, is they've integrated AI into all of their recruitment processes. And they've gamified the assessments around that. So what actually happens is when somebody goes for an assessment with them or for an interview, um, not only is the AI kind of assessing the answers, but it actually kind of adapts as the interview goes. So if somebody isn't given great answers, it will actually make the interview a little bit easier because they don't want to create a horrific candidate experience. Whereas if they're given great answers, it will actually ramp it up and make it more complex. And then it analyzes all of that, ties it into the core competencies that are being assessed for, fit for company culture, all of the other things, those soft things that are really important from a recruitment perspective, but often get overlooked by the hiring manager because they're just concerned about, well, can this person do the job and can they start tomorrow, without necessarily thinking about values and culture and competency and all of that kind of stuff. And Unilever, as a result of that, has they are now able to hire their people faster, cheaper, they stay longer, they perform better. And they're a really great success story for how this can work. So let's get into AI in recruitment. Now, what we're going to touch on specifically here is generative AI. For those of you who aren't quite sure of the difference, if you think about traditional AI, it's doing analytics and the process automation and all of that kind of stuff. But generative AI is really about essentially creating some sort of content off of the back of that. So that may be something that is text-based, something that's an image, audio, code, or whatever that may be. Um, and a number of recruitment teams now around the world have really plugged this in to streamline and enhance their processes, particularly removing a lot of kind of the grunt work of working in recruitment. And again, just as Unilever have seen, greater efficiency, greater personalization, and a much improved candidate experience. So if we go to the next slide, what I'm going to share with you very, very quickly is how this works within a job descriptions piece. Now, at a very basic level, generative AI, so you can go to ChatGPT or Grok or whatever that may be, and just say, hey, I want a job description. Can you please create one? And it will generate one. So on that hand, great, but also how usable is that? But what you're able to do is essentially train that AI, provide it with templates, provide it with kind of the guardrails that you would have anyway, and allow for really clear, engaging, and tailored job descriptions. Now, for those who maybe aren't as involved in the day-to-day of recruitment, that may seem really basic, but I can't tell you how many recruiting teams have to spend ages chasing managers to create to create job descriptions so that they can actually start the recruitment piece in the first place, or to do job advertisements or so on. So really being able to kind of speed that up, take some basic notes from the hiring manager, and then a non-technical person. So, for example, if you're hiring a really complex software engineer, and you may know some of the words, but you don't necessarily know what they do. Well, you could take a couple of bullet points from the manager and then generate the full job description without them needing to take the time to do it. And it would also ensure that that language is in the right way to make sure we get the diverse talent pools that we're all after. But still maintains the correct tone and style of the organization. And then what you're able to do, as we see in this next slide, is to take that to a much deeper level and get into the whole customization piece around that. So there's always the ideal candidate that an organization would like to hire, but anyone who's worked in recruitment knows that that ideal candidate very rarely exists. So, for example, if you are hiring a junior person, what you're able to now do extremely quickly, and that nobody had time or capacity to do before, is to create maybe five different versions of the same job description. So what you could do is, if you're hiring for, let's say, a trainee engineer, just to carry on the example I was using earlier, well, now what you can actually ask is for the AI to take the original job description and break that down to target different kinds of candidate persona. So you could have one job description that is written for people who've just come out of university, maybe they've done their computer science degree. So tailored very specifically to what would attract them, the type of capabilities you would expect, and so on. But then maybe you're also targeting people who've worked in, I don't know, an IT help desk role or so on, that are looking for a transition into something else. Because it's a trainee role, and then you can then have another job description that is tailored specifically to them. Likewise, you could have it for people looking to come from non-technical fields into that, and you're only limited by your imagination. And then what you're able to do with this customization is take it to the next level and also build that into your advertisements. A lot of organizations, when they hear that the average job advertisement gets over 100 applications, I know some recruiting teams that say, hey, that's nuts. There's no way you get an average of 100. I can barely get any. But when you look at the advertisements they're often posting, it's essentially just a copy and paste of the job description onto LinkedIn and onto Indeed and onto their company website and wherever else they're posting it. So again, what you can use generative AI to do extremely quickly is to create five, six, 10, 100 different advertisements for you, to focus on, here are the individuals who are meet the original personas we were speaking about, maybe university, maybe people looking to retrain. But here's an advert designed specifically for Instagram versus LinkedIn versus the company website versus, I don't know, something really specific like an industry specific website. And then all of a sudden, in the same amount of time that it would have previously taken you to just have one job description for the role and for you to put all of that out there, you're now able to have five or six different job descriptions, each with 5 or 10 different advertisements that you can post. And then your ability to then segment out, target different demographics, create that personalization for them, which then improves number of applicants, quality of applicant, keyword variability, and so on. You can also enable better A/B testing, so you can run two adverts side by side using different language, see which ones get the better responses, and so on, to really ramp up how you're doing this. And I saw one organization who've done this now. They've been playing around with it for the past 18 months. And they have gone from receiving on average about 80 applicants per job role to over 1,000 applicants per job role now, which is giving them a much broader spectrum of candidates to select from, which again means they're definitely hiring better quality. Their diversity mix has gone up and so on as well, because they're able to source from different channels. And it's really been great for them. And then if we go into the last part here that I want to speak to you about today, interviews. And so anyone who's in recruitment knows most managers don't know how to interview. It's it's a touchy topic in some organizations because no one wants to call out the managers, and ultimately they are the bosses and all of the rest of it. But the reality is that most people who've ended up in management roles have never been shown how to interview. And so everybody relies on the same set of generic interview questions. Give me an example of a time. Or they make these really subjective decisions based on tenure and CV or whether they worked for a competitor, all of that kind of stuff. And this is why most organizations struggle with new hire failure. I think it's something like at least a third of new hires don't last 6 months. Getting people to last beyond 18 months is an incredible challenge, especially for more junior roles. And so AI can help to actually provide a kind of standardized set of interview questions to be used to not just ensure that you're able to make better hires, but also to help you to actually train your managers and get them focused on what they should be looking at in the first place. It gives you that structured interview piece. It also avoids the need for three different people to ask the same questions in three different interviews. Most people think that a structured interview is when three different people, conduct an interview, first round, second round, third round. But if they're all asking the same generic questions, it doesn't really mean anything. It's not a structured interview. A structured interview would be that you've got a technical person assessing on a technical basis. Maybe you've got someone from HR assessing on values and fit. And then maybe you've got someone from the leadership team focused on overall goals and objectives and ability to deliver outcomes. So being able to really articulate that and get that documented down extremely quickly via Gen AI is very, very useful. And then what you're also able to do is if you have the interviews recorded, so you just record the Teams interview if you're interviewing them via Teams, you can then transcribe the interview and you can get an objective data point for what the actual answers are. Because human beings have bias. We naturally get on with people who are more like us, who sound like us, who answer like us. And that means that we don't always hire the best person. And so what you're able to do then is put the answers through kind of an independent filter and see how they tally out and use that as a data point because someone may have had a great conversation with someone, but they may not have actually got any good answers. So it gives you that objectivity, which again helps not just improving quality of hire, but all of the D&I goals that organizations work towards. And that then reduces that bias down. By providing that objective analysis, which again is why organizations such as Unilever have been able to not only improve speed of hiring, because there's always so much focus in recruitment of trying to cut costs. But if you spoke to any CEO and said, would you rather hire them cheaply or would you rather they stay with the organization better and deliver better results? They tell you the second answer every time. But how do you prove that? And what Gen AI here allows you to do around this interview piece is show that you're putting in place those things. And then you can link this to the organization, how average tenure, performance ratings, all of that kind of stuff there. And then I think that is it, except for I'm going to leave you with one last case study here from ADP, who are now reaping the benefits of a lot of what I've just said, specifically with generative AI. So what they have done is they've built Gen AI into not only their own processes, but they're also doing this for some of their customers as well now, I understand. So whether it's job descriptions, offer letters, all of that, again, grunt work that kills a recruitment team's capacity and their ability to deliver. The more impactful stuff that they'd like to do in terms of building brand, quality of hire, they've now got all of that running through generative AI. And again, what is that meant for ADP? Enhanced efficiency. There's less mistakes around data. There's greater accuracy. User experience has gone through the roof, and it's all through AI generated content and support. Nick, over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lee, and some really interesting examples there of Gen AI in action. I know a lot of people that have come along today have probably played around with a large language model like ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or Claude or Google's Gemini or something like that before. But we wanted to give you something quite useful to kind of take away. That if you're trying to get kind of Gen AI to write job descriptions or customize job descriptions or write interview questions, this is a really useful framework that we've developed here at Edify to help you kind of structure your prompts as you go into one of those platforms. So we're going to talk through it for a moment, but I mean, certainly if you've got, if you're on your computer and you've got access to ChatGPT or one of those platforms that I mentioned before, feel free to open it up now. And I just want to, we're going to talk through this briefly. There's 6 components to it because the truth is when you use large language models, if you put shit in, you get shit out. So the quality of your prompts is absolutely crucial to actually getting something that's worthwhile out of the large language model. So if you just write me a job description for a software developer, it's just going to give you something very white noise and generic. But the more specific you can be in structuring the prompt and the command that you're giving to it, the better the results that you get will be. So this is what we call our create framework. There's essentially 6 components to this that we want you to think about every time that you write a prompt. Yeah. And I'm going to talk you through each of these. I'll give you an example for HR or for recruitment in just a moment. But firstly is the character. So this is who do you want ChatGPT or whatever large language model you're using? Who do you want it to pretend to be? What is the expertise that they need to have? You might want to write that you're a recruitment manager recruiting for a software company that uses very, that is rapidly expanding. You want to give it the character, like who is the large language model supposed to emulate? You could actually have fun with this if you want to say, imagine you're Beyonce, or imagine that you are a famous poet, Andy Warhol, but essentially give the large language model a persona. Second part is the request. So this is really specifically what you're asking it to produce. Yeah. This is, I want you to write a job posting for a specific ad. Within this job posting, I want you to use these specific words, or I want you to cite these specific references. The E is an example. Now, if you're using ChatGPT for premium, has the ability to search the web. So you may want to copy and paste an existing job post in here, or even just a link to an existing job post that's on your company website. This will again help the large language module kind of emulate your style of writing and what it is that you're going for. The fourth piece is the audience. So again, to kind of what Lee was saying before, really think about who it is that you're talking to. What is the platform that you're talking on? You're going to have a very different kind of language if you're writing something for LinkedIn or Indeed versus something for a college university job board. Or something that lives on the website might be very different if you're using another social media platform to promote your job, like Facebook. So who is the audience? What is the right tonality? How would it resonate for them? Then you want to get a little bit into type. Now, in type, it's things like, do you want this written as a block of text? Do you want bullet points? Do you want it in a table format? Should there be a little combination of both? How many words should it be? Yeah. Or how many paragraphs of text should it be? Again, the more specific you can be in the prompt, the better the results you're going to get from it are. And then the last bit of the framework is extras. So these are things, and I often like to do this. Sometimes I'll ask ChatGPT, so what else do you need to know from me before you write this ad? Or before you start to create this job description, I'm going to give you some more information. Or can you please explain your thinking after you've given me the job ad of why you've decided to structure it this way? Yeah. These extras can really help you, again, push the model kind of to its limits and get more out of it. So I'm going to paste that. Feel free to take a screenshot of this if you like. I'm going to give you an example now of what this looks like in action if we were doing a HR-related task. Okay, so in terms of character, you are an experienced HR manager who specializes in marketing. So you're immediately telling the large language model who it is that the kind of role that they need to assume. Then in terms of the request, so in this case, we're specifically looking for a job description, a JD for a marketing manager, a little bit about the company. Then in the example, Here's an example of how we typically write job specs. Please follow this format. Now I've used Profitero as one of our clients, a direct link to a job spec on the Profitero job board. A little about the audience. We want people that have got 5 to 7 years of marketing experience. It should be professional and engaging. It needs to be in a structured format with headings for responsibilities, qualification, and preferred skills. And then in terms of extras, ignore any unrelated information, focus solely on the job description details. Please ask me any questions about specifics of the role if you are unsure. Okay. Now, by giving the large language model, ChatGPT or Copilot, or whatever it is that we're using, all of this information in our first prompt, we are going to get a much better response from it. Now, again, if there's any questions around this, please feel free to use the Q&A feature. Sometimes with these types of frameworks, it can be really difficult to think about how do I populate all 6 of these things. You don't necessarily need to fill them all out, but the idea here is to think much more holistically about what it is that you're trying to achieve here. Any questions around that? I'll leave the Q&A up for a moment. Or should we actually put this into action and see it live? I think let's do a little bit of a live demo. So I'm going to do a new share here. I'm going to open this up. Most of you, I'm sure, are very familiar with the interface of ChatGPT. And I'm going to take that, hopefully everyone can see my screen okay. I'm going to take that exact prompt that we just wrote, and I'm going to paste that directly into ChatGPT. Now, we don't need to use the character and the reference piece, just going to copy and paste directly out of that table. I'm using ChatGPT 4 here, which is now available in the free version. You can use, if you're interested, it's a little slower, but O1 is the new version of ChatGPT that's just launched that has reasoning, more critical reasoning in it. We can run this in O1 actually, seeing as we're not, oh, actually, no, we won't because O1 cannot link to an external website, and we are giving a specific URL here that we want ChatGPT to look at. So I'm going to run that in the background there. We'll give it a moment to process that. Yeah, if you want to use O1, it is a little slower, but it will actually talk you through the reasoning as well of where it gets to. So let's have a look at the job description that's written for us. So again, we haven't really given it the company name, but you can see it's broken out into the various points that we want. It's got the key responsibilities, again, breaking that out. I mean, using some bolding and yeah, some structuring of the text there. Qualifications, what it thinks is appropriate for this, the preferred skills, benefits, and then obviously a link for us to put in how to apply. So it's a very brief demo of using Create. Again, if you have ChatGPT or any of the other large language models to hand, strongly encourage you having a go with this framework yourself. Try it out for a specific task that you're working on. And who's the character? What is the request? Can you give it an example, either by uploading a document or pointing it at a specific URL? Who's the audience? What's the tonality that you should be going for? What is the type? How do you want it to structure the response? And are there any extras? So definitely feel free to have a play with that. We have one question that's come in, which can we share the slides? We will share the recording of this session, Martin, afterwards. So Louis, who's on the call right now, will be sending that around. So if you do want to share this with anyone else, please do that. So just quickly, the very soft plug at the end, if you are interested in this kind of stuff and exploring a little bit further, we do have a 4-hour AI and HR session, which really kind of goes a bit deeper on kind of what we've discussed today. So it looks at AI, not just for recruitment, but also for employee experience and engagement, and also for things like rewards, benefit, well-being, and compensation. A big part of this lab is about trying to get your HR team kind of on board. So identifying the types of tasks that HR do every day that can be automated by AI, but also the types of tasks that could be augmented by AI, and where human touch is absolutely still paramount. It starts with a little bit of a gap analysis, So we really help you identify where the team is at using a specific maturity framework. And then we go through a sequence of activities like what you've just seen now with the Create framework, but we also have some other brilliant frameworks and ideas that get you kind of writing job descriptions, writing interview questions, screening candidates, dumping data in from an employee engagement survey and drawing insights from it, building your own GPT that understands your company tone of voice and so forth. And it culminates at the end of the day with a little bit of an action plan. So if you are interested in finding out more about the AI and HR mini lab, please scan this QR code on the screen or click the link that I'm about to drop into the chat. Um, Anything that I've kind of missed that you think we should cover off, Lee, or any other kind of questions or things from having run this session yourself that you think is worth sharing with the crowd today?
I think the only thing that you've well that none of us have gone into today is just how much this is just the tip of the iceberg. In the sessions we've run around this, it's really getting deep into being able to create tailored engagement plans for every single department in the company in a touch of a few buttons, running through the results and all of that kind of stuff. So I think this is kind of what we've done here is a great taster and a great kind of teaser for it, but it is very much the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, absolutely. And even in the 4 hour session, it's designed for kind of, decent sized HR team, 16 people max in the session. We cover a lot of ground, but it can be a real kind of light bulb moment, I think, for a lot of people that come into it. Who are still just using maybe ChatGPT on the side and a little bit like a Google search kind of thing, not really realizing the power of it and what can actually be done, and really designed to kind of spark curiosity. We have
Yeah,
one
and I think
question. Sorry, Lee.
yeah, I think we're going to say the same thing. I just saw Sona as well, just asked about AI ethics, and that's something else that we touch on within this session is really getting into how you get that balance right to make sure that the AI does what it's supposed to do. You have the right guardrails in place around data and things like that to ensure that um, everything is done ethically. It's incredibly important. I remember doing a podcast earlier this year, and I think out of like the 40,000 people working in AI, there's only like 400 or something working in ethics. So it's an incredibly important point. And again, there's a lot of guardrails to be put in place around that.
It's a very interesting space to watch, particularly as policymakers are trying to catch up with the technology. Also, another question in here, just specifically around Copilot. So we actually, we're not talking about it today, but we do have a version of the HR program, which we've just launched, which specifically uses Microsoft Copilot. So if that's your kind of authorized tool and you're rolling that out, Copilot in Bing, Copilot in Office 365, definitely get in touch with us and we can tell you a little bit more about that. It's the same program, but rather than using kind of a different sort of tools, it's really focused in on Copilot. We can share information about that with you.
Yeah.
Mark
Oh, and
Mark also has a great question here. Do you want to pick this one up?
yeah, I can pick this one up. So the short answer is yes. It depends on how complex you want to get. So when I worked for a leading consulting company who actually specializes in salary data, if any of you look up on LinkedIn, you can guess who they are. But there's a lot you can do around that, specifically filling in data gaps, because there are what the benchmarks say. But then, especially if I'm assuming because you've asked this question, you're not working for, HSBC, for example, who have basically the data from every company going. So what you can use the AI to do is first provide, you can insert the links, for example, you can go, well, here's the information we have from Michael Page or Hayes or Glassdoor or whatever it is. Here is our information. And then you can actually treat it as essentially as an employee, a reward specialist. And be like, well, what we're actually trying to do is this. Maybe we have 33% attrition, and the number one reason cited is our pay. And we know we're losing people because we can only afford to pay this. The market's saying that what else can we do? And what you can then do is one, look at it from a purely fiscal perspective and work out what you may need to rejig around pay. But there's some really interesting case studies. So I spent, a decade or so as a HR management consultant going around the world and working on projects around reward, especially. And what you'll learn is that for every 10% increase in pay, there's only a 1.5% increase in engagement. So even if you do just throw money at your people, people won't stay if they're in a bad environment. In fact, one of the funniest things around the salary data experts, what they have in their data is the best performing companies or the best paying companies often have the least unhappy people around satisfaction around pay, and they think they should be paid more, but they're actually paid at the top of the market. So you can also use it to get into those specifics around, well, look, I can't pay anymore. What else can I do? And the answer isn't just throw a pizza party, but it's then looking at career paths, engagement, because most people, if you say, well, look, I can't pay you much more, but I can guarantee you a promotion in 2 years and you're going to go from here to here and then you're worth X, that stick around. So again, it's not just tip of the iceberg in terms of just looking at the data and getting some quick insights and then really going deep into, well, then how can we actually make informed decisions within their organization, change policies and so on.
Awesome. Thank you for that great question, Mark. And I know some people maybe didn't see the question, but it was just specifically around looking at comp and benefits using AI and having salary data all over the place. So
Hmm.
awesome. It looks like we're done on the questions. Thank you so much, Lee, for taking the time out to join
Cool.
us
Thank you
today.
for having me.
And thank you everyone else who's come along. Hopefully been kind of a provoking, provoking, thought provocative, thought provoking. I can't get my words out. I'm in Australia and it's very late at night. And my
Yeah, it's
brain
late
is
for you,
not
Nick.
working right now. But hopefully a very interesting session for you. Like I said, if you're interested in finding out more about the programs that we run and our HR mini lab, which Lee is one of our fine facilitators on, please scan that QR code or click the link in the chat. And we will share this recording after the session. So if you do want to share this with colleagues or anyone else who missed the session today, we'd love you to do that. Thank you, Lee. And thank you everyone for being here.
Cool.